Hey guys, this is Afina and you are watching the King's Love Combos. Have you ever been in church or praying, having your moment with God, and like the dirtiest thought, the craziest thought just came into your mind out of nowhere? That's happened to me. I'm not gonna lie, I can front if you want to. I know it's happened to someone out there. Your whole attention is focused on God. You weren't looking at anything crazy, you weren't watching nothing crazy, but just this crazy thought just pops up into your head and you're like, oh my gosh, sorry guys, sorry. We are in a spiritual war. And just like how God has a plan for our lives, so does the enemy. I think we've kind of reduced spiritual warfare. We've reduced the devil and Satan into like this fairy tale kind of like fixture of our imagination, this character dressed in all red with these pitchforks, but not really realizing that it's real and that he's a spirit and he's not just a character, but he is alive and he is well. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." And Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." His job basically is to tempt us and to drag us away from the plan that God has for our lives and the will that he wants us to walk into. So one of the ways that he does that, obviously, is through our minds. I don't think we realize how powerful our minds is and how that is where everything starts. Because if the devil can get you to think something, he can get you to do something. Because our body only does what my mind tells it to do. He will bombard your mind with all types of crazy thoughts, whether it be, lust, whether it be about bitterness, whether it be pride, whatever it is. He will bombard your mind with all of these things, with all of these seeds, in order to get you to act out in a certain way. Because again, your body only does what your mind tells it to do. The devil will always make you question what God made clear. Think about the story of Adam and Eve at the beginning, where God gave a command, and what he said was very clear. There was no gray area, there was nothing confusing about it, there was no room for error, there was no room for anything. It was very, very clear. But what the enemy did with his punk self, he came and he made Eve question what God said. So God said, you can eat of any tree in this garden except this one tree. Boom. That's it. So what the enemy did was he just slithered his way into Eve and he made her question what God said. Like, did God really tell you that? Because God does want you to like have wisdom and, did he really say that? Or, maybe he didn't really say it. Maybe he meant something else. The enemy does the same exact thing to us today, where it's like God made it very clear and he makes things very clear. You know what path to walk in. You know what to do. We know the difference between right and wrong. It's very clear, but we start to question, or we start to allow the enemy to cause us to question, like, did God really say, like, to not be unequally yoked? Like, I know he's not a Christian, but, does God really want me to wait until marriage to have sex? He knows that like I'm human and that I need like sex and stuff. Like, he don't mean that. He gets you to question, he gets you to ponder, he gets you to think and go back and forth. And 9 times out of 10, the minute you just start wrestling and going back and forth in your mind instead of shutting it down, we end up falling into that sin. This is why it's so important for us to guard our hearts and to guard our minds and to constantly think about what we're thinking about. It's very easy for us to sit there and say what we would never do. Like, oh, I would never do that. There are a lot of things, honestly, that I said that I would never do that I ended up doing. God always backtracked and always showed me how I ended up there. It always went back to me not guarding my heart and allowing myself to meditate on these things and allowing myself to think on things that wasn't right to think about. And it's not about being legalistic and it's not about having all of these rules, but we need to understand how things work. What you entertain and the seeds that you plant in your mind, something is going to grow out of it. Whether it's something good or whether it's something bad, whether it's something evil, whether it's something righteous, something is gonna grow out of it. I'll use the example of lust and fantasizing. We may think like, oh, well, I'm just thinking about it, so it's no big deal. Something is gonna come out of that thought, out of that seed. If the devil can get you to think about cheating on your husband, he can he get you to do it? Because again, your body just does what your mind tells it to do. That is why a lot of these books like 50 Shades of Grey and all of these shows, it can be very dangerous because we are filling our mind with lust and adultery and all of this stuff, and eventually it's gonna come out some way, somehow. It's very easy to be prideful and think, oh no, I'm strong enough. Like I said, I would never do that. No, that's crazy. But like I said, there's a lot of things that I said I would never do that I ended up doing. And it was all because I did not guard my heart. Another tool that the enemy uses is distraction. If he can get you so focused on stuff that does not even matter, get us so consumed with stupid stuff that is not gonna matter when we get to heaven or when we stand before God, if he can get us so consumed with that, we won't be consumed with Jesus and following him and focusing on him. For example, the devil ain't gonna tempt you with no bow-legged, crazy one-eyed man. God knows you and God created you, but Satan studies you. He is very crafty and he is very smart. You could be focused, right? You could be so focused in your word, praying, going to church, and you're doing good. So this is Jesus, right? Jesus is right here and you're focused and you're like, yes, Lord, and you're just, And out of nowhere, some man, it could be your ex, it could be your ex-boyfriend, your ex-girlfriend, whatever. And now instead of focusing on Jesus, you're now focusing on this person. Someone that God never intended you to be with, someone who is nothing but a distraction and who is pulling you away from God. Think about a boxer. If you're going into a fight, you're not going to go in without having prepared some way, somehow. You're going to do a little weight training and just make sure that you're prepared to fight and win. The reason why a lot of us are getting our butts kicked is because we are going into the ring and we are not prepared. We don't read the word. We're ignorant of his word. And we think that just going to church on Sundays is enough. The devil don't take no days off. It is so important for us to really fill ourselves up with the truth so that we will not be bombarded and dragged away by lies, by Satan's lies, because the devil will lie to you. He will try to convince you that what you're believing in and what you're thinking about is the truth. He will convince you that God doesn't love you. He will convince you that you're not worth anything and that God doesn't have a plan for you. He will convince you that it's okay to sleep with your boyfriend and live any type of way you like. And if we don't know the truth, then we will easily fall into that because we have nothing else to hold on to. It's an everyday thing. We can't live off of strength that we got from last Sunday. I will not be full off of a pizza that I had yesterday. Every day we need to eat. Every day we need to fill ourselves up. Sit before the Lord and read his word and study his word and really make it a part of who we are. If Jesus was tempted, and if the enemy tried to lure Jesus away, of course he's going to do the same with us. We may not believe it and we may think, oh, it's not that serious, it's not that deep, whatever. But that's the reality of it is we are in a spiritual war. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do not forget to visit my blog at SafinaCarla.com. And of course, do not forget to subscribe here at the King's Love Combos.
This is not about bombs and bullets. This is not even about literal armies gathering on literal battlefields. This is a spiritual war that Satan wages against the people of God all over the earth. And this involves everyone who doesn't belong to Christ. Everyone.